Okay. Welcome back this week. We're glad that you're joining us, and we're glad to do another episode for you. Today we have our friend Duncan, Gwin. He is going to. We're just going to discuss a bit about music and worship and kind of how he got into it, how it leads him in his walk these days. So tune in and take a listen with us. Hey, Duncan.
Hi, Paul.
I think I start every episode. I'll do that. I'll be like,
good evening.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
So thanks for coming on. We appreciate it. I've known Duncan for, it's been like 3 years. So I've known you longer than that. Yeah.
5 years.
About 5 years. We worked together, and then now we work together, and we lived very close to each other, and now we go to church together. And Duncan plays guitar and is very, very musical. Duncan can do about anything. And I really, it's
not true.
It's kind of true, and I like that about Duncan. But I just wanted to talk with you today, and because I think we had this one episode earlier in the season about worship, and Jake and I got into some music, and what kind of worship songs were really driving us, on a daily basis. And I wanted a different perspective of somebody that started playing music in a secular sense, and learning that way, and then kind of that evolution of just music, and how that's either moved you toward God, or changed your relationship with Him, or just affects you in that way. So can you tell us a little bit about just where you started in music?
So
is there a story where okay.
I think I mentioned it in my episode.
I think you did.
Yeah.
Maybe John's episode
we'll
too.
get there. Yeah, we'll get there eventually. So actually started out in elementary school, as most children do, in a band class, and the instrument that I was given, I don't know that we really had much of a choice at that point in time, but was the snare drum.
Okay.
Ooh,
So,
drummer boy.
yeah.
Hey, come on.
So I did that for a few years, and I wasn't meant for like a drum kit. Like I can play a snare drum, that's fine. I learned to read, sheet music and notes and everything, and I could play that just fine. But when it came to a drum set, my feet and my hands don't talk to each other.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
That was the beginning, and shortly after that was the end until I was about 12. And my dad's a phenomenal guitarist, and I'd grown up around music, and just listening to music constantly. My dad was, your typical classic rock guy, listening to Led Zeppelin and stuff like that. And my mom was, more into everything. So like old blues and Motown, and
was music played like all the time around the house, like music
Constant,
over TV?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I don't like looking back at my childhood. I remember watching some cartoons here and there, but TV wasn't really a big thing.
Yeah.
But music was. And so about 12 years old, I'd finally gotten to a point where, I was like, Dad, like I want to play guitar. And he's like, okay, here's a guitar. And he just gave me a guitar, it was an awesome, like old Gibson. I didn't know what I had at the time. It was like an old Gibson guitar that was really cool, and like weighed 100 pounds. And
was it electric?
Yeah. It was a Gibson L6S. So it kind of looked like a Les Paul, but it was, so that just kind of sat under my bed for maybe like 2 years, just collecting dust. Like I wanted to play guitar, but I didn't want to put in the work for it. And over time, with different friends and stuff like that, we kind of all got into music and started learning to play your typical teenage Blink-182 pop punk songs. And
what was the first song you learned?
Oh man, it wasn't Blink-182. It was actually Led Zeppelin. It was actually they have a song called Custard Pie. So
how does Custard Pie go?
Just look it up.
Yeah, you have to listen to it. I don't know the words.
What was your first guitar, Jake?
The guitar or the song?
The guitar.
Well, I started out playing bass guitar.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so It was just some
like
cheap,
Ernie Ball.
It was like a
something
Johnson or something. It was like Ace Music brand or something.
got you.
Jake Tercer.
Yeah.
My first guitar was an Alvarez.
Okay.
Alvarez acoustic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that was my first acoustic.
Okay.
My first guitar was an electric.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of where it started, and it evolved over time, and I got into different kinds of music. And
what really pushed you to like dive hard into music? Like, what was it? The playing part, or the listening to others play, like, and wanting to emulate that, or like where did that drive come from? Because knowing you has expanded my musical tastes like beyond what I would normally listen to.
I honestly think it had a lot to do with wanting to emulate my dad.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So, like I said, he was a fantastic guitarist, still is. He's great. But a lot of that was, I wanted to be able to do that. And,
for sure.
So that's what pushed me to try. I wouldn't say that I tried really, really hard, because I didn't. And I went to my dad multiple times, like, Dad, just like teach me to play a song. Like, I want to play a song that you know how to play.
For sure.
And he would. And, it wasn't like he wasn't like being mean, but he was like, like, if you want to learn to play guitar, like, you'll learn to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And, I didn't have guitar lessons or anything like that, which, is a blessing and a curse in many ways. But so that's kind of what led me to be able to teach myself. And that kind of moved over into different parts of my life. Like, loving to learn.
Yeah.
And loving to learn how to do things and solve problems and
This is before
figure out how to do stuff.
This is before YouTube.
Yeah. This is before you could just, buy a guitar lesson online.
For sure.
You'd have to wait like 6 years to download one, probably, if back in those days.
Guitar tabs were definitely my thing.
You had to go to the store and get a Guitar World magazine, and it would have like five songs in it. It's like, well, looks like I'm learning how to play Stairway to Heaven this week.
I never was good at tabs. I'm not.
That's the only way I learned, honestly.
So there was a point in time where there was like a bunch of guitar tab sites, and then through some like legal dispute, like all of them got shut down except for one, which is still around today, because they're like on some weird like Russian server or something like that. But so like you used to be able to just go find a tab.
For sure.
There was like I said, a bunch of different sites. So it was easy to do. You could, this was post Guitar World magazine days. Yeah. You could look up stuff, but it got more difficult. But I learned to play stuff by ear. And
now, did you play in any bands?
Yeah, I did.
Unfortunately.
Did you play in any bands with Jake?
No,
I didn't.
So that didn't cross over. So what kind of bands did you play in?
So I played in one band in high school. And I played with John Budeau.
Which is a previous
John Budeau. Yeah. John Budeau was the drummer.
He's actually in the studio today behind the scenes, but yeah.
So it was on par with the day's music. It was like a rap, rock, Limp Bizkit style band. It was pretty bad. But I played bass.
Rap, rock.
Not that that makes it any better, but I played bass.
Have you noticed that like most of our guests are kind of in the same age group, and that's where we've all kind of started? Cameron and John and Duncan and man.
Yeah, I guess say what you want about it, but it's inspirational.
I mean, you're far from Limp Bizkit rap.
Oh
rock.
yeah. Which like I said, I grew up with a pretty diverse taste. Like,
for sure.
My dad was kind of like just in that one vein with like the classic rock. My mom was like the hipster of her time, and like all the my mom introduced me to Ryan Adams and like all these
she was cool.
And she still has a great taste in music, and
sure.
she like My Morning Jacket and like all these bands that I would have never heard of if she hadn't introduced me. So she was always into like different stuff. So I had like a pretty diverse taste from that.
Okay. Okay. So you like your music abilities evolve, and what I know now of your music abilities, I mean they're pretty substantial. So in that, in your life growing up, you're playing in a rap rock band. Was that through you were at Stivers at the time? Yeah. Where in that journey does the turn go to, using those musical talents for worship? And I guess we actually need to go back a little bit and kind of like find out like when your heart and your life kind of made that turn.
Yeah. So oddly enough, that does play a part in how I came to Christ and got involved with this church. This is the only church that I've gone to, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been here since I was
Shout out SCF Dayton.
16-ish.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So John and I played in this band together, and John and I were really, really close friends, and we hung out like constantly.
Yeah.
And we got around to like playing some shows in the local venues, and I think we played at Gathering Grounds a couple times. And there's a place called The Attic that like everyone played there like a billion times.
The spot for sure.
Yeah, it's like you play there and you have to like pay money to play there. Just kidding.
Buy pizza for everyone.
Yeah, no, not quite. Yeah, like sell tickets.
Yeah, it was a sham.
But anyway, so we got into playing some shows around there, and I was 16, 17 at the time. I was like a sophomore in high school, 16. And somehow we ended up playing a show here at this church.
Really?
Yeah, we used to have shows here.
In the Missions Cafe. And through that, we met like Tyler Green and like, a bunch of people that were in the music scene in our area. And yeah, so we met them, and that was kind of it. And then later down the road, a childhood friend of mine, Travis, he started coming here, and he invited me to church. And so John ended up coming because John worked with Travis at Best Buy, and like it was all interconnected.
Yeah.
And so we ended up coming here, and we became friends with a lot of the people that went here, a lot of the kids that were our age, and the rest was kind of history.
So was that your first like introduction to Christianity, or had you?
So my first introduction to Christianity, I was maybe like 5, 6 years old. I don't know. I was old enough to have a memory of it.
Yeah.
And it was a church on Smithville, and it is now like some kind of Spanish-speaking church, but it's like right by Kroger over there. You drive past the building a bunch of times. But I went there one Easter. I think it was Easter or Christmas. It was one of those holidays. It was like kind of like one of those holidays that people go to church on, but they don't go the rest of the time.
Right.
So we went there, and because I was so young, I had to go to Sunday school class. So my brother and my sister, stayed in some other class, and I was like terrified. I didn't want to be separated. And I went into this class, and it was a bunch of toys and stuff, and there was a couple other kids. And there was this toy that was like a tree. And I don't remember much about it, but I remember like the tree like rotated and it like pushed down. Okay. And I accidentally smashed this other kid's fingers in it.
Oh, man.
So I was like traumatized, and I never wanted to go back. So that was like the only other time that I went to church. So I started coming here when I was around 16. So
at 16, would you have considered yourself a believer, or
no,
did that transition happen while attending?
So when I was 16 years old, my sister passed away in a car accident, and that's kind of started a turn, if you will. And because of that, we had like counselors from other churches and stuff coming to the house, and trying to console us in some way. And I didn't really understand it, so that was part of it. But then when Travis and Carissa invited me to the church, it was kind of, they weren't necessarily inviting me because of that. They were inviting me because they had found truth here, and they wanted to share it. And but no, by no means was I a believer. It took time for me to take it all in and accept it. And I think most people kind of have that experience. Not all. Some people just it's a life-changing thing right from the get-go. But
for sure,
for me, I had to ease into it. I was not political by any means, but I was very like scientifically minded, and that's just kind of the way I thought. And I was, how could any of this be true? So it took me a while to get away from that and into, believing this truth.
Yeah.
It's common. I mean, that is with a lot of people. I mean,
so when did you have that desire? So your heart's changing, your life is kind of recentering around things. When did you want to start playing music in a quote unquote worshipful way?
Well,
they needed somebody.
Yeah, I didn't. I think that it really came out of a need. It was kind of a, hey, like, you know how to play an instrument. We need a bass player. Like, you've been going to this church for X amount of time. And I think at that point I was, I had kind of, given my life over to Christ. That I don't remember how many visits it was, but at some point I, went up for prayer, and I was prayed over by Tyler Quinn's mom.
Oh,
okay.
Roxana. She prayed over me, and I felt something. Like, I felt a shift. Like, I felt like a physical thing, not just someone touching me, but like I felt a physical change.
For sure.
And obviously, an emotional and mental change with that came along. But yeah, so, at this point, I'd been attending here, I don't know how long, but Tyler Green was leading worship, and Brenda was playing piano, and they needed a bass player. And so I just got kind of like thrown into the fire. And
the carpet was still blue.
The wall was red and the carpet was blue for sure. So yeah, that's kind of where I started. And like I said, I didn't necessarily want to do it, but there was a need, and I had the ability to do it to a degree.
Yeah,
not really, but to a degree. And yeah, so that's kind of where I started playing on the in the band here, and I did that for a long time. I filled in as needed, because the bass player at the time was not able to make it every week. So, and
you're still playing.
I'm still playing.
Not bass anymore, but you're still
bass
playing.
Anymore. Yeah, it's been a few times I've had to, but
how has making that shift in, playing I think the three of us can admit that, worship music and that type of music and Christian music today is definitely, different than secular music. It just has a different feel, a different, makeup and whatnot. People think of like K-Love songs and whatnot, and that, it has that stigma, more and more these days there's excellent, music and compositional, stuff. In playing that, how has that changed you as a musician, or, how you look at music? Or has it?
It definitely has. I mean, going into it and hearing some of this, if we were to play some recordings of the song we were playing at that time, I would probably, not think much of them. But, I was also just trying to figure out like what I was doing. It's like, there's like so many notes and they're happening so fast, and all these changes.
Back when we played fast songs.
Yeah. And I don't know that you've been around with Brenda playing piano, but those bass notes change quick, man.
Yeah.
And that was hard to follow. So I think that on a subconscious level, it was affecting me, and I was growing more comfortable with that style of music. And it all comes down to the words. I mean, the music's there, and I think the music can elicit an emotional response, but it all comes down to the words and the truth that you're singing.
For sure.
And, even though like I can't sing and play an instrument at the same time, the words are always in my head, and I'm always thinking about them and thinking about how true they are and how wonderful they are.
So that Jake and I have had that conversation of like, what is it about worship music that, affects you the most? And I mean, Jake is lyrics, and you're obviously, and me, it's the musical composition. I'm not it's just been probably the last, year and a half, 2 years of my life that I've actually kind of zeroed in on those lyrics and, like to actually hear them and move them. But I think on any given Sunday, like it's still that driving musical force for me that like I really, really connect with. And that's interesting as I think of the way you play and kind of where you sit in the music, and I would have not thought that's like kind of the drive for you. That's very interesting.
Yeah, well, and part of that is just because of the instrument that I play. I mean, like if I played, acoustic guitar or something that was more rhythmic, I would probably be able to sing and play at the same time. But since I'm playing, things that are just kind of like fillers,
spatial
almost.
And stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, it's
lead.
It's not necessarily something that you would, you don't necessarily think that I'm thinking about the words the whole time. But so that's only with worship music.
Yeah.
When it comes to anything else, I really don't care about the words. I care about the music.
Right.
And it depends on the artist too. I mean, I think there are Christian artists that they're not necessarily going to be writing songs that are going to be sung in corporate worship. Mm-hmm. We were talking about one earlier today, like Josh Carroll's. I mean, those songs are fantastic. The words are great,
but you're not going to hear them.
No, I mean, there's not a song that you can sing with the body of believers.
Yeah.
They're not something that's structured in that way. But I think because of the way that worship songs are composed in the musical composition, they allow us to focus on the words a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Some things are more repetitive. I mean, you look at old hymns; they're not necessarily repetitive, but the words are very rich.
Yeah,
and the cadence is in such a way where you kind of remember those words. And remember how they sound.
You can catch on like pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah, and I was actually I don't know. I think it was John Piper. A while back, I saw an article. It was like Desiring God, and it was about something that John Piper had talked about. It wasn't written by John Piper, but they were talking about folk culture versus fine culture.
Okay.
And the question was, is there a place for like classical instruments and orchestras and stuff like that in a church worship setting?
Yeah.
And I don't remember the conclusion of the article, but it was just kind of discussing, worship music kind of meets people where they are.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to go with the culture. Mm-hmm. And, not everyone has access to an entire orchestra, or do they care to hear an orchestra? They've never heard one before.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's just a guitar or a piano or an organ or whatever. Sometimes it's just people singing. You look at the early Puritan church and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't necessarily have pianos in all these buildings, so they would just sing out of a hymnal.
Yeah.
The music meets people where they are, and some people really benefit from the instrumentation and the music behind the words being there to kind of guide them. Mm-hmm. But really, as believers and singing and worshiping and singing those praises, we need to focus on the words and the truth that we're singing.
The richness of it.
I'm not saying that you're not doing it, Paul, but obviously you're singing.
Yes.
You know the words.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense because the most of the lyrical content is derived out of Scripture, and it's the living word. So I mean, as we're singing that, we're just giving that praise right back to God. Man, I like that statement. The music meets you where you are. That's a good thing to think about. Where do you think? I don't know. Where do you see? If you could choose and you could, write your own stuff, where would you take it for you?
Oh man, what do you mean?
So okay, well we'll go back. What is
like? I'm not gonna play like a Limp Bizkit style. Is that what you're asking?
No.
Man, Pappy's got a cold. If y'all can't tell, we apologize.
So no,
we all have colds now too.
So I'll take it back a step. So what's the main what music right now is really getting you on a worship front?
What are you listening to often?
Yeah.
Worship wise.
Honestly, lately it's been, I'm always thinking like new music, and lately there really hasn't been like that much new music that's really like striking me.
For sure.
So as a family, we've been listening to Leland a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's a mix. I mean, it depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes I just want to listen to something that's like, stripped down, just acoustic kind of folk music, and other days I want like, a big band with big reverb sounds.
For sure.
And it just depends. I don't know that I necessarily have anything lately that would direct me down a particular path.
If you were needing like just that one connection to let's say you're having a bad day or something like that, and you're just needing that one connection, and there's a song that could like just get you fired up, for a guy. Because like for me, I would go to Echo people, People in Songs.
I feel like that fits certain personalities.
That's true.
Some people just have like Pappy's running the aisles, at work because he puts on a song and it gets him going. Some people do that. Some people don't, and that's not a bad thing. That's awesome. Yeah. We send him back and forth. I mean, I'm sure Duncan has like,
man, I'm always listening to so much different stuff.
Yeah,
sure. I mean, like, I really like Sojourn. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah.
So
there's a handful of songs.
There's some like gritty. I love that stuff. Yeah.
So where would you, if you could, have your own like directive on where to take, worship music? What would you do? Where do you think, like, the community that you live in? What do you think is the hunger and the drive, the push for? Because I mean, here at church we play great songs. I love our worship, and I think it's a pretty good mix of things.
Thanks to Kelly and Duncan.
Absolutely, 100%. But what do you think, like, in your community as a whole, where, like, is there room for us to grow? Is there room for us, to look kind of outside the box in what we're doing to maybe bring us together a little bit more, in a corporate way, or,
Yeah,
no, that's a big question.
That's a big question. I think I forgot everything you asked. We sing a number of songs from like City of Light.
Yeah.
Which, they're like an Anglican church. They've got, great lyrics. They're well written. They're well structured. The song structures are fantastic. So I think that's something that's really important to our church, and our community, just because the songs they sing are very simple, but they're not just the same thing over and over and over again. It's not just one single phrase that you're repeating, which there are songs like that are great too. So I think having those biblical truths and making sure that you're singing them in a church setting is important, because you retain that.
Yeah.
I mean, you retain those things as knowledge. I mean, like you said, they're usually, not always, but most of the time, the songs that we're going to sing are going to be based in Scripture. Otherwise, we're not going to sing them.
Right, for sure.
When you turn on the radio, there may be some
there might
other
be a
stuff
little liberties taken there.
Yeah. So we're going to sing things that are rooted in Scripture, and you're going to, as Pastor said, you're going to hide that.
Yeah.
Hide the Word of God in you.
Yeah.
You're going to memorize those things. And, the melodies are just as important. I don't know. I'm sure many people have said it, but you don't go home humming, the drums.
Yeah.
Usually you're humming the melody of the song.
For sure.
And, you may not have the words memorized yet, but you know how the song sounds, and some of the words.
There, yeah.
The words that struck you. And kind of going back to those more simple songs, the songs that don't have as many words, that are, those songs are easier and easier to memorize. I think those are really important for people that are new in their faith.
Yeah.
Because they're still true, and they're not necessarily as lofty as really deep good hymn is.
Mm-hmm.
As a new believer, you're singing all these things that you're like, what does that word even mean?
Yeah.
You don't know that stuff yet, but if you sing something simple that is a biblical truth, that's going to help you progress and grow as a believer.
That's good.
I like that. And I think when I, turn around and look around, like, when we're singing worship, I think the majority of our congregation connects lyrically.
Oh, for sure.
That it's those truths that we're saying. And I mean, that shift has happened to me since I've been, coming to this church, and I've been involved with, part of worship music for a long time, and that's just not always been the case. But I don't know, the power of what we say and how we say it and saying it along with others has just become a profound thing to me. And I feel like our church worships well, and I hope other churches worship well too. And what, I don't know. Do you ever look at other, like, visit other churches or see other things and say, well, maybe we should do that, or how come we're not doing that, or if you go to a conference or something and think, well, maybe we should add that. Where is there kind of a chance of getting a little too comfortable in things, or is that okay because that's where the heart of the church is at the moment?
Yeah, you can definitely get too comfortable. I wouldn't say that our church is there, but you can definitely get too comfortable and too used to production and, just kind of how things move. And where's the fog machine? Like, where are the colored lights?
For sure.
You need to be okay with, hey, the entire band's sick. Let's sing a hymn together. Yeah. No instruments. You go to one of these mega churches and, if something like that happened, things would fall apart.
For sure.
People
would be disappointed.
I would hope that they wouldn't, but, you need to be able to worship without all the fluff, without all the production. And, you can get too comfortable for sure. I think it's important to mix it up, to have different styles, to have, within the means of what you can do. There needs to be some consistency too. You need to play the same songs over and over and over. As musicians, we get burnt out on them so quick.
Yeah.
Because we play them, all the time, but it's not necessarily the 100th time that someone has heard this. It might be the second time they've heard it, or the third time they've heard it, and they're just now understanding what these words mean.
Is that hard for you as a worship leader and someone in the worship band? Is like the repetitiveness? Is that a hard thing that it loses its meaning for you? Is that something you have to be aware of and still find like connect with the meaning of that?
Yeah, it's that is difficult. When we've played a song for X amount of weeks or whatever, and it's like, man, like this one's just like, it's feeling tired.
Yeah.
And it's feeling like we need something new.
Yeah.
And Kelly and I go through that often.
Yeah.
I probably get tired of things more easily than she does. But yeah, you're always wanting to keep things fresh. And, you kind of mentioned going to new churches and seeing different things. And it's like, me, I'm always wanting to improve and change things for the betterment of our church and our church body. And, you go to a conference or something and you see all this stuff and you're like, man, like we should do that. That was cool.
We need 12 different subs,
You're like, you think you need all these things. And, when you come back home, you're like, no, this is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
When the church is you can hear the church singing back to you.
It's powerful, man.
Yeah, it's not like they're being drowned out by everything else going on.
Sure.
I can hear them. I can hear them singing, and that's just awesome.
There's nothing better.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll try to wrap this up and put a bow on it with this last question. What has playing different instruments in a worship setting and being part of that leadership, guiding and in a sense pastoring a congregation towards Christ and towards the message and getting hearts set right or hearts responding to the message in a certain way. How has that grown you or moved you or shaped you more as a believer and seeing God's character?
Wow, that's a deep question.
It is a deep question.
Take your time.
Yeah. So, it's continuing to grow and change me and my family. And
that's one thing I think that's awesome for me. It's like, and I think just in our, the three of us here and this church is like we're involved in that, and we have our families in that. And Jake's got the little one on the way.
Hey, come on.
And Salem's going to be, we get here at the church, early and rehearse, and our kids are, just kind of running amok and whatnot. But usually when you start practicing that, the music, they're up there dancing and they're up,
when you hear your 2-year-old, singing, the words to a song, and they're not necessarily like easy things to sing. When you hear a 2-year-old singing that, it's like, man, like they've been exposed to so much that's just part of them.
Yes, and I think that's raising them well. Like Sunday, Gianna grabbed my hand during Glorious Day, and like she tugged on it, and she looked up at me, and singing it. I'm like, this is the best. Like it's like I'm not even having to try hard, to get her to see, what we're doing. We're leading by example well, and I think that's an awesome thing for your families because it's you, it's Kelly, and your 3 girls are always exposed to that, and how have like. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did. But growing that and seeing God's character and that back to that, how is that moving there, being a part of that?
So as I was saying, it's really it's changing our family continuously, and there are days when you don't feel like getting out of bed and doing the thing, but when you're in it and you feel, God's presence, I mean, it's transformative, and we've been doing this for I don't know how many years now. I mean, but a long time for sure. I know that I've been playing fairly consistently on the team for like 13 years or something.
Man,
it's been a while. It's had a profound impact on me, and I think that. I can say the same for Kelly for sure. And, I've seen her grow and, just cling to the word and, just continue to desire to praise him and worship him and to help other people, come into that. And, it's not like it's a show, it's not, you don't go there and you're not, we're performing in a sense, but I mean, we could be in the back of the room playing. I mean, it's not for people to look at us. It's for people to look at him. It's for people to sing praises to him. We're going to be doing that for eternity.
Well, I think that's evident. Like when you see you guys up there and, see Kelly, it's like that, like it's important. There's a, I don't know. I feel like from you, and often when I look at Kelly, leading, like the gravity of what she is doing, you can just, feel it, like how she is, leading us and wanting us, to really get our heads around what we're saying and what we're seeing.
She means it.
Oh, absolutely, and that, I mean, I think we're lucky in the fact that we got you guys to, lead us in that, every Sunday.
Yeah. Well, we're blessed to be a part of the church, and we're blessed to have a great pastor and a great body of believers around us. They're very supportive. For me personally, I've served under 3 different leaders, of the Green family, and it's been just a great learning experience, learning from them. And, they all have different personalities and, different styles of leadership. And, it's been really good to be with God's people and, serve alongside them. It's not like we're not separating ourselves because we're standing on a platform. It's really like, everyone's singing together and we're all doing this together. I just happen to be playing an instrument. But like I said, hearing people singing those words and, it, echoing, in my ears, it's like, man, this is the best. Yeah. And it's not because, not because they're singing words in my direction. It's because, we're all praising God together.
Yeah.
Amen.
And, it's just been phenomenal. And, I think that, we'll continue to do it for as long as we can. It's part of our family now, and
maybe one day it'll be, the little ones up there.
Maybe. I mean, Finley's a little performer. She likes to sing. She's a little shy though, so we'll see. She's got the shyness from me.
Yeah.
Jake, anything you want to add?
Nah, man, that's good. I mean, it is a blessing being on the worship team here at FCF with Duncan, and going back to, I never ever thought that we would be sitting here talking about worshiping and playing music for God. The day I met Duncan, he's teaching me a guitar riff. We're teenagers, and then many moons later, it's like, we got a podcast and we serve at the same church, and
your brother-in-laws,
is that all that kind of stuff.
I don't know if that's
technical. Okay, but I'm married to. My wife is Duncan's wife's sister, so it's confusing. But technically, I mean, we're all family.
We're just call it that, though. But it's fine.
Yeah, and I can, ring off anything that he has said. I agree for sure. It's a blessing.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Duncan. I appreciate it. And guys, thanks for listening. Again, you can find us on Iron and Anchor Co. on Instagram. We're ironandanchor.com. We're also a YouTube channel. Please check us out. Listen on your favorite podcast apps or service, and tune in next week. Hey guys, this is Paul from Iron and Anchor. If you're feeling led that you might want to be a part of the podcast, go to ironandanchor.com and to the Contact Us section. The form that we send out to people for the episodes, it's going to be on there. Fill it out and we'll be in touch. Thanks.